Do, 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 do. Oh, that's nice. Hey, everybody. Hope you're all doing well today. Hope the day isn't treating you too roughly. I know there's plenty going on out there, but we'll try and have fun while we can. And yeah, it's my birthday later this week. Friday to be specific, but this is the closest live stream here on the main channel I'm going to be doing to that. So yeah, happy birthday to me. Soon. uh, good to see everybody here. Reminder, while I will try and keep up with the chat, the one thing that guarantees that I will see and respond to your question or comment is to do it as a super chat, which will also get you a gay little heart of appreciation. 50th tomorrow. Well, I hope you get to do something nice with it, Amber. Oh, Ash G. Alexander. Thank you for becoming a member and supporting the channel. I appreciate that greatly. Earlier today, Lego and Pokemon officially announced they'll be collaborating in 2026. Cool. I am not particularly invested in either one of those things, but I'm sure if you are, that's probably real awesome. I did wear green yesterday, just not any articles of clothing that I could show you on here. 44 on the 25th. Oh, so we for a few days, Elizabeth, we'll be the same age. Briefly. Can't do super chats as I'm about to take a sabbatical from work. That is incredibly fair, Twilord. I try not to milk blood from a stone, but you know, if other people want to spoil me, look, this is my job and it helps. I'm not going to apologize. Oh, hey, Bobby. It's good to see you. And hi to everybody. Coyote, Carolyn, Jen. Good to see everyone. I've heard Severance is very good, so Zoe. I haven't seen any of it because I don't have Apple TV. So I've heard it's great. I've not seen a shred of it. Phil Paget, comedian, in with the super chat. Thank you very much. Buy yourself a card and sign it from me. I think, no, I know the cost of a card would be, for a cheap card, would be double what you just gave me. So no, I'll just go ahead and pocket that. Am I a fan of the Paddington franchise? Not really. And that's not because like I don't like them. Like I think I've seen the first one. I think I fell asleep watching the first one. That had more to do with the fact that I was tired when I tried to watch it than my thoughts on the movie. It's the kind of franchise that like my kiddo would have had to have been into it for me to keep coming back, and they weren't and aren't. Not planning to, Ms. Wicked Wolf. I'm not particularly interested in supporting what Warner Brothers is up to unless they really do something that I think is worth supporting. And yes, I'm aware I still have a Max subscription. That's where a lot of Doctor Who is, and I still need access to it. But, you know, they don't, they are not deserving of ticket price for me. Especially for something that is completely their ownership. Like, there's plenty of Warner Brothers stuff, like, they're just distributing it. But then there's stuff like that. It's like, no, you guys just keep screwing up. And you're screwing that over, and you took the classic cartoons off of Max. Why? Why would I watch that? Favorite biscuit, a.k.a. cookie. Ah, we have a Brit in the crowd. I think it's mood dependent, to be completely honest. Like, nostalgically, homemade chocolate chip, because that's kind of what I grew up on. But I'm actually really partial to oatmeal cookies, actually. That's mildly controversial. I don't know how this is going to be. I was given some chocolates from the Dominican Republic. And like, there's no indicate. I know that they're a variety, but there's no indication of like what is what. So, all right. All right, that was milk chocolate. That was pretty basic. It's good, but pretty basic. Never read the book, never saw the movie, Ms. Wicked Blue. I have no thoughts. Jen, yes, it is a new outfit. I was sent this. Excuse me. This was sent to me off of one of my wish lists. So this was a birthday present. I actually was sent several dresses as birthday presents, but obviously I can only show off one at a time, and this was the one I already happened to be wearing. There's also other stuff that was sent to me for my birthday, which would get me demonetized to show or probably even describe or talk about on here. So we'll move along from there. Do Americans have any biscuits at all? I mean, we have cookies and we have biscuits, but what we call biscuits and what you call biscuits are not the same thing at all. So we have a thing called a biscuit, which is not what you mean when you say biscuit. And we have what we call cookies, which are what you mean when you say biscuit. So we have it, but it's called something else, and the thing that you call that is a different thing. Everybody clear? Clear as mud? Cool. Awesome. My first stream here on it via the hello. That was Amelia Perez. Oh, that's always like the one upside when absolute garbage like that comes out. It's like I need to see people discussing it because I can't just be the only one who has this in their head. But you know, that helps us find each other, find new creators we like, and things like that. That's the upside to otherwise complete garbage fires. Biscuits are like a combination of cracker and cookie. Yeah, like I don't know what specific things we have here would meet the specific criteria for biscuits. I know there are some things like I'm fond of shortbread cookies, which I think are a kind of biscuit you have over there. I don't know though. Like I'm gonna mix and match all this stuff. So biscuits and gravy. Now, see, that's an American thing because also what we call gravy in America is not necessarily what gravy is over there. So like, English is a mess of a language. It's weird though because in the UK we have cookies as well, but they're different to what we call biscuits. Oh yes, because that's not confusing in the least. Being a while since I saw it, was shocked to see that Phone Booth is only 77 minutes long. I rather like Phone Booth. It's one of those movies where, because it is so tight and so packed and starts so immediately, it feels way longer than it is, and like in a good way. I have a similar feeling about the movie Gothic, which is like just so soaked in atmosphere. And by the time it's done, you're like, whoa, what a 2-hour experience. And then you're like, check the time. It's like, that's less than 90 minutes? What? I miss shorter movies. I really do. And what we in Ireland and Britain call cookies are a very specific type of biscuit. Biscuit in the US is more akin to a savory by default scone. Well, when we're getting into savory versus sweet, it's all screwed up in America because we put sugar in frickin' everything. So, you know, our bread qualifies as cake in other countries. So, yeah. Would you ever try fish fingers and custard? Somebody would have to pay me. For fun? No. No, I don't think I would. Could Doctor Who tell a story that's basically Phone Booth? It could try. That kind of storytelling feels more Big Finish's wheelhouse, though. All right, that's darker. Oh, that's quite a bit darker. Wow. Oh, dang. Whoo. That was a lot. Wow. Sugar or corn syrup? Yeah. Sweetener. Let's just go with that, Jason. Yeah, see, Jen, we call it all cookies. We have crunchy cookies, we have soft cookies. It's all cookies. Phone Booth is a movie um, starring Colin Farrell and actually directed by Joel Schumacher. People like it's so annoying to me that people are like, "Oh, the Batman and Robin guy." Like the man had a really eclectic filmography, and some of it's really good. Jaffa Cake. I only know that term because Yassi Croshaw drops it sometimes. Doctor Who's phone booth is basically Boom. No, not really, Phil, because a core component of phone booth is the way the sniper is directly controlling the situation. So it's not enough just to be trapped and you can't leave because it'll get you killed. That interaction between the person who has you trapped and the person who is trapped is real core to what phone booth is doing, and Boom doesn't have that. Oatmeal cookies with golden raisin butterscotch chips are top tier. Ooh, that does sound good. I like butterscotch. I feel like that's an unappreciated sweet in general, especially in the US. I think people tend to associate it with like old person candy, like the little individual wrapped things. I'm like, I don't care if it's old person candy. It's good. What's the plot? The plot of Phone Booth. This is such a weird topic we've gotten onto. I'm not complaining. The plot of Phone Booth is that there's this guy who's a little bit of like a sleazy agent kind of guy, and he's using a phone booth in Manhattan, and all of us, and he was using it for his purposes. He finishes up, and all of a sudden he gets a call at the phone booth, and it's a sniper who says, "If you try and leave that booth, I will kill you. If you try and summon help, I will kill you. And if you try and tell anybody outside the booth what is going on and that I have a sniper rifle trained on you, I will kill you." Movie. I feel I've started something bigger than I thought. I shouldn't have brought up biscuits, cookies, scones. Hey, this is fun. We are here for fun, and I don't mind it at all. Favorite muffin, chocolate chip. When I was in high school, I was a member of the Forensics Club, basically public speaking, presentations, and acting. Looking back, those were honestly, some of my fondest memories. I never got too much into that. I had some friends who were in something similar. Butterscotch pie is my favorite. Ooh, that's lovely. Do they have marzipan in the U.S.? Yeah. It's hard to find. It's not particularly popular. Have you watched Moana 2? I have a review up in the break room of Geeks, Jason, if you want to go and check that out. Should the TARDIS bring back the food machine? I mean, maybe as a gag? I don't know what function it would serve. Like what sure? I guess why not? Yeah, but Discord is one of your Patreon benefits. I pay enough to be in there, but I've completely forgotten to ever ask for the code. Oh, I post that at the start of every month. Oh, Carolyn even mentioned it. Yeah, for some reason, like I think the problem is me, and I don't know what it is, but I keep trying to get the Discord properly integrated into Patreon, and it keeps not working. So at this point, I just post the link to the appropriate support tiers at the start of every month on Patreon for anyone who can't get in otherwise, because I can't figure out what the hell the problem is. What was your opinion about Zoe Saldana and the song El Mal both winning an Oscar? I assume frustrated with your inner core. I mean, well, okay, so here's the thing, Gabriel. Like, I talked about this before, so I'll try not to linger on it. The first is those were the two that I kind of accepted even before the Oscars. Like, those two are going to win. I knew that. So, like, I wasn't surprised. I wasn't shocked. I knew that was going to happen. Zoe Saldana, I am like, she's not bad in it. It's not an Oscar-worthy performance. I mean, it's not. And El Mal, what I'll give her credit for is of the two songs they had nominated from that movie, it's the better one. I would actually say it's easily the best song in the movie. It still doesn't work properly as a song in a musical should, but whatever. My main frustration with that is it meant that because he's credited with the lyrics, they handed an Oscar to Jacques Audiard. That's what like gives me the, flames on the side of my face. As much as I hate Jacques Audiard, he spoke for us all when the two other original song winners started singing the end of their speech and he went, "Please wrap it up." I don't care. I try not to swear on the streams, but fuck that guy. Seriously. Vera, isn't there some way that the Timeless Child changes things because we feel like it does? I don't understand your question. Heard of the Netflix animated series Exploding Kittens? Huh. No. I've heard of the card game. I've played the card game. I can't remember if I knew there was a series or not. Okay. Ms. Wicked Wolf, every single time I bring up the fact that I don't like to swear on my streams, you say that literal exact same thing. And every single time I point out to you, I know I'm allowed to, but I try not to. You say that literally every time. Please stop. You have said that. I am aware. Please stop. I liked the video, but I was surprised the reveal didn't change how you viewed Zakawe. I mean, I'm not saying it didn't change it at all. So we're talking about a video that went up earlier today in the break room. It's not that it didn't change my view at all, 255, just not enough for how much it felt like the story was leaning on it. Because basically, like, I had accepted, like, he obviously has done some very messed up stuff and has a long history of violence that the culture has chosen to adapt him into their own uses and so forth. So really, the only thing the twist changed was how bad the things he did were. But it wasn't like I thought he never did bad things. It just changed what the bad things were. And that wasn't enough. At least I didn't feel it was. It didn't move my overall opinion of him very far. Especially because, like, it's a reveal about way far in his past that I have watched him for now decades worth of time, thanks to the time jumps with the backwards running narrative. I've watched him, cope with, fail to cope with, try to atone for, try to run away from, whatever. Like, the specifics of what he didn't alter what I thought of him, watching him trying to find a way to move on with his life and failing. Like, all of that remains completely intact. All that changed was how bad the things he did in his past were, but I already knew they weren't good. So that's what I mean when I say it didn't change. It didn't significantly change my view of him as a character, because it wasn't structural. It wasn't a structural difference in the kind of person that he was and the kind of life he led. It just took it to a further extreme than I'd realized before. Supreme Omega! Thank you very much. On Miller's Dark Knight Returns, does it deserve blame for damaging Superman and for having Batman and Superman being constantly at odds instead of just being friends? Yes and no. And as is the case with almost anything that led to a popularization of things, that thing is not necessarily at fault. What's really at fault is the industry at large and or fans and or other writers taking it as like, oh, let's keep doing that. Because you could argue a similar thing about Watchmen and the way that it viewed its heroes and basically pulling everybody off their pedestal. You could argue that that is largely to blame for a wave of just awful people presented as heroes, which was especially prevalent in the 90s, but has also never really gone away. But at the same time, like, to say that it's Watchmen's fault, like, no, it's not the fault of that. It's the fault of everybody who looked at that and said, ooh, there's a blueprint. I'll do that now. And I kind of feel the same way about The Dark Knight Returns. Is it to blame? I mean, no. The people who look at it and go, oh, that's awesome, instead of, oh, that's tragic, they're to blame. So, no, not really. Is it responsible for popularizing the idea? You could argue that. But I always kind of push back on the use of specifically of the word blame, because it's not like it was setting out to 100% rewrite how people viewed Superman in general and Batman and Superman in particular. Carlise the Cinephile. Oh, no, Carlisle. Because it rhymes. Carlisle the Cinephile. I got there in the end. Thank you very much for the super chat. I appreciate that. Happy birthday. Here's a virtual present. I appreciate it. I saw Amanda Lux's... God, I can't read it all. I'll have another drink. That'll help. I saw Samantha Lux's review of Amelia Perez. She praised it, so I added it to my watch list. Then I saw loads of trans and or Mexican people say it was tone deaf and promptly removed it. By all means, Dr. Houdon, you are allowed to watch it yourself and form your own opinion. I think it's absolute trite melodramatic trash made by people who not only don't understand transness or Mexico, but also don't understand how the hell musicals are put together. But that is my opinion, and I am not an objective reviewer. There is no such thing. Like, there were even queer people who thought it was good. I vehemently disagree, but people can have their own opinions on it. Also, did you think the thing about him getting triggered by chairs was silly? No, I think it was as extreme as it was probably going to have to be to trigger the sort of response we saw him have throughout the rest of the book. I mean, if you're going to claim that it was silly, you would have to also dial down his reaction to those things in his later life, because I think it would have to be something that severe to justify the way he reacted in the rest of the story. So, no, I wouldn't label it as silly. Is it morbid? Is it maybe a little much? Possibly, but for what it functions in the story, no, I think it tracks. Also, did you think, I read that. How many werewolves are there in rural Vermont? That is confidential information. You need to be part of the registry to have access to that. So I will not be sharing that publicly. Finish the Sasha Dewan master audio set. The final story is very Skyman-esque. Ooh, that calling a story, especially a Big Finish story, Skyman-esque, is both a recommendation and a warning. Because holy crap, that story. God. Whew. Best and worst films of the 2020 so far. Best films, Nimona. Worst, I don't know. I'm a bad person to ask for worst, because I think if something looks bad, I'm not going to watch it. Because while I can be considered a professional critic, I'm not the kind of professional critic who has to watch a new movie every week. Therefore, I just get to skip the crap. If I think it looks bad, I don't watch it most of the time, unless I have some other reason to, as I did with, say, Amelia Perez and some other things along those lines. So I'm a real bad person to ask for worst. Because most of the things that would qualify, I have not watched and don't intend to. But the best is Nimona. Oh. Coyote Azul, thank you very, very much for the super chat. Don't know why I felt the need to roll that R. That was actually, in that particular word, that's an awkwardly placed R to try and roll. Don't know why I did that. Is it possible Dark Knight Returns and Watchmen are so controversial because they punched a hole in what could be called part of America's constructed mythology? Okay, let's back up a step. Watchmen and Dark Knight Returns were not singular events. They were culminations of stuff that had already been happening. Let us not forget that the story where Green Arrow's sidekick gets addicted to drugs and the X-Men story God Loves, Man Kills both came out before Watchmen or The Dark Knight Returns. Those, while incredibly influential and incredibly successful, were not singular events that came out of nowhere. They were natural outgrowths and culminations of trends that comics had, at least some aspects of comics, had been headed towards for a while. As for why they're controversial, I think part of the reason The Dark Knight Returns is controversial is because Frank Miller is a raging xenophobe and his writing talent has abandoned him at an exponential rate for the past, let's say 15 years. No, let's go 18. And as for Watchmen, I think a lot of the controversy over that, again, I think has more to do with people taking the wrong lessons from it than from the work itself, more than anything else. The Call Me Master set is brilliant. Sasha Dewan is great, and all 3 episodes are very well written. For me, the final episode is the highlight. 7 out of 10 would recommend. Very cool. Actually, 7.5. Oh, cool. Defunct. Thank you for the super chat. I appreciate it. Happy early birthday. Had mine a few days ago, too. I wish you all the good things for you and yours. I appreciate that. Would the worst movie be Amelia Perez? I mean, that might be that. Okay, so Amelia Perez is probably the worst movie that I've seen from the 2020s, but I do not pretend that is an objective measure. I wouldn't even pretend that. Are you a fan of the Chucky/Child's Play films? Yes and no. I am a fan of the fact that it exists. I love reading about or hearing about or watching stuff about those. I don't super like the actual movies, and I've never seen the series. But I do absolutely appreciate that they exist. Like, there's a lot I appreciate about them. Favorite Al Pacino movie? Devil's Advocate. Have you watched Broadchurch? If so, what are your general thoughts, Miss Moneypenny? I have seen the first series of Broadchurch actually on this channel. I have a review. I've got a playlist. If you look under the playlist, you'll find it. I reviewed every episode of that. I didn't move on after that, not because I didn't like it. I did think the first series was quite good, but I also thought it's done. That's a finished story. I didn't see why you would do more, and so I never bothered getting around to it. Honestly, the main reason I did it was, one, Chibnall was going to be taking over Doctor Who, and he hadn't yet at the time I did it. And 2, I think I did that back when I was still doing daily reviews. And I like shot those in advance to fill out a week because I was on vacation. God, it's so weird to think back to the time I used to do daily uploads. Good grief. And I still had a 40-hour-a-week full-time job with a half-hour commute that I was doing back when I did that. Oh, good grief. Ed Phillips. Thank you very much for the super chat. Hey, Vera, what do you think of Bernie Sanders? I like Bernie. I've always liked Bernie. I remember Bernie came to my high school when I was junior, senior, somewhere in there. And I heard him talk, and I liked him then. I still like him. I like Bernie a lot. Half hour both ways? Yeah, half hour each direction. So, hour total commute. So, yeah. Have you watched any Korean dramas? Nope. Series 2 is good, and is the trial of the guy who done it. Series 3 is completely disconnected based around a different crime. Series 1 is by far the best. See, that's what I'd heard. I've heard defenders of Series 2 and 3, but also like everyone seems to agree the first series is the best. So I'm like, cool, I'll just stop. Do you know the character Glenn? If you do you think Glenn is a good representation of trans people? I don't know what we're talking about, Gabriel. I don't. Oh, okay. So is this from the Chucky stuff? Yes. Okay. Oh, yes, Glenn. I don't know what's been done with the character in the series. I think that Seed of Chucky had some interesting ideas, handled clumsily and messily. It doesn't hold up now, but also I think the creator would know better than to do it the way he did it at the time. You know, if he was starting from scratch now. So like, and I don't really know what's been done with the character since. Do you think filming seasons or film sequels back to back help or hinders the film franchise? Depends on the nature of it. If it is meant to be one grand story and they're not meant to be more or less self-contained, Discord, yes, Carol, and I will get to that as soon as I finish answering this. So like, if you're talking about something like the Lord of the Rings trilogy, it made total sense that they filmed it back to back to back. It's one continuous story. It's not done until you do the whole thing. It also made sense to film the first two Matrix sequels back to back. It's one continuous story. It's incomplete on its own. But if they are meant to be more self-contained, or at the very least wrap up the immediate story, I generally think it's not a great idea, especially on a season of television, because one of the things we're really losing at this point, one of the things that was the benefit to the older TV model, at least in the US, where you had 20 to 24 episodes per season, was that it was still being worked on as it aired, which meant things could be corrected as it went. They could adjust characters. They could remove characters who are flat out not working. They could pivot things in response to how it was being received. And the more that you shoot before the public sees any of it, the more you are locked in and the bigger the risk is, because if you're wrong about what people are going to like, you can't fix it. It's too late. You already filmed it. So, yeah. Anyway, I got to hop over to the Discord. I will be back in a couple of minutes. I'll get through these as quickly as I can. Reminder, Council of Geeks Discord is a Patreon exclusive perk. And it's the other way to guarantee that I answer your questions other than doing super chats, though I appreciate the super chats very, very much. Happy early birthday. Don't spend it with a broken MacBook and someone impaled in the arm with an arrow. Totally not just writing down a joke scenario from a story I'm writing. Promise. Whoa. Okay, I'll make a point of not doing that for sure. Happy birthday. I only have one question in the stream. Which birthday of yours would you consider to be the best one you ever had? Oh, jeez. I don't know. I might actually get the numbers wrong. I think it was 40 and like 28. They were the two times that I remember there being like an actual gathering of my friends, because I don't do much on my birthdays for a variety of reasons, but you know, one of the reasons, even when it like falls on a weekend or whatever, is that it almost never pans out. Like we'll plan something, but then people can't make it, or there's a snowstorm or whatever. And so like those were the two times that I remember things actually pulling together. And it was nice, and I really enjoyed those. Happy early birthday. Any pieces of wisdom you care to share? You come to me for wisdom. You truly are lost. Find what you love and don't let it fade away from you. I'm lucky enough to have been able to tie my living to things that I enjoy doing. But if you don't have that, don't let responsibilities or the rest of the world stomp out your love of something that brings you joy. Anything you're looking forward to now that you're 43? No, I'm not. I'm not sure that the next few years are going to be a good time frame to ask me what I'm looking forward to. I don't know. One of the things I've appreciated with each year that passes is that that's a couple of fewer fucks that I give. That's always kind of nice. No question. Please have some water. Oh, all right. Well. Cheers. Oh, that's good water. Whew. If you ever wanted, if you wanted to, do you think you could have a YouTube channel where you don't talk about your identity at all? Or do you think other people would talk about it so much you'd either have to respond, i.e. talk about it, or just put up with the harassment? The other day I found a movie review channel that I'm pretty sure is run by a trans person, but they just don't mention it. It made me wonder why that's so unusual. And the above is my guess as to why. So I mean, the first thing is with YouTube, you have a choice as to whether you're on camera or not. I would imagine it's probably a lot easier to not bring up, your gender identity at all if you're not appearing on camera. Lots of YouTubers don't. I obviously do. So like, I think logistically, the only way I could probably manage it in terms of like not having it come up no matter what I did would be to not appear on camera. Because yes, since I am visibly queer, even if I never brought it up, anytime I gave a thought or an opinion that landed with an audience that didn't want to hear it, it would pretty much be guaranteed that they would throw my identity at me, whether I brought it up or not. Would it be possible? Sure. Would I do it? No. Simply because I don't want to hold myself back in that way. Like, I like to think that I don't make my identity this entire channel. There are people who will claim that I do. That's usually just based off the fact that, again, I am visibly queer, regardless of what I'm talking about. But like, my identity informs a lot of my perspectives and a lot of my life. So I like appearing on camera, and I like having the freedom to talk about what I want to talk about, whether it be queer issues or not. So it's certainly not something I would ever do. It is possible, and if you're not appearing on camera, probably easier. If you are appearing on camera, I imagine it's a massive pain in the ass. There is a Star Trek The Next Generation episode where the characters ask the holodeck to generate an original Sherlock Holmes story, but all it can do is recombine the elements from a pre-existing Holmes story. Should the quality of AI generated content go on the list of future technology Star Trek accurately predicted? Sure. Let them have that. Would you want to see a Bond movie that tries to tell a similar story to Use of Weapons or Logan? I don't like that franchise, but I think a movie about him trying to give up being a secret agent, not being able to, would be kind of interesting. I mean, arguably, they tried to do that a little bit with Skyfall. I think like you could, they're not going to, not for a very long time, because like the story to do that with would have been Daniel Craig's last one. Because it's the kind of story you need to tell at the end of a character's career. This needs to be a closeout story. Like, there's a reason that Logan ends with the death of Wolverine, but spoiler for No Time to Die, which I don't worry about because it's bad. They have James Bond die, but they still don't explore that. And if you're going to explore that, you kind of need to end the dude's story one way or the other. Ooh, this one came just under the wire for the deadline. By 1 minute, I'll let it go. Happy birthday. You may not know and be leaving it to Jesse, but with Babylon 5, it was clear from the start how you would deal with the movies that relate to that show. I don't think it's been said how or if you plan to deal with movies that do not form part of Babylon 5 main series, e.g. Razor. Huh. I Nope, I have absolutely no idea what that even is. And given that we've moved on to a whole new series, I guess we're doing it. Cheese, how stinky do you go? Stinky cheese, not my preferred kind of cheese. So not really. And as it's soon your birthday, cake or death? Death, please. Cake, cake. I said, you said death first. Death first. No, I meant cake. Oh, all right. You're lucky I'm Church of England. All right, popping back in. Jennifer De Benedito, thank you very much for the super chat. Hope you have a great birthday. Thank you. I appreciate that very, very much. How could both Dark Knight Returns and Year One take place in the 80s, yet All-Star Batman takes place in the 21st century? What's going on with Frank Miller's chronology? Frank Miller didn't give a crap. Don't try and make sense of it. Do you think the Doctor Who Season 2 recent reshoots were to try and fix criticisms of Season 1? I have no speculation on the nature of those reshoots. Reshoots are very common. It's hard to know whether they were the standard kind of reshoots or something more extensive. I'm not going to speculate. Yes, Tabletop Transformer. I'm quite familiar with that song. What are your opinions of the film Sleepaway Camp? I've never actually watched it start to finish. I know the twist. I know its deal. But having not actually seen it, my broad stroke opinion is, boy, that hasn't aged great. But other than that, I'm like, whatever, man. It was the 80s. It was a cheap slasher. It had a gimmick. They needed them. What's one of your favorite rewatches or what's one of your most recent rewatches or favorite films? Brevin, I do ask on the Discord, and I say this when I announce the live streams, that questions be in before the stream actually starts. The reason I do that is because I used to have a problem with people asking additional questions midstream, meaning that the Discord was eating up more time than was ever the intention. So that's the reason I do it that way. Most recent rewatches. I mean, I've rewatched Nimona the most recently. It's funny, like, you're saying rewatches like movies, but the thing that's actually coming to mind is I fired up Spiritfarer because I realized that on my most recent playthrough, I had done everything except the final bit of the game, and I fired that up like a couple days ago just for the last section and cried again. That game's amazing. I have a hard time getting into Bond, but I'll try with the next one. Maybe at a bad time, though, with Amazon now owning the whole thing. But hey ho, I mean, like, Bond isn't for everybody. I probably like. I got into it with GoldenEye. I was I was teen. I was male presenting. Thought I was a guy. It had an appeal. It's like it's fun, silly action. I don't take it very seriously. Excuse me. Rewatching The Soldier and Death episode of The Storyteller. Bob Peck was such an underrated actor. I need to rewatch The Storyteller. I've got that on DVD. Oh, it's so good. It's so good. That show was amazing. I'm reading Jaleel White's autobiography, Growing Up Urkel. Whew! I can only imagine how rough that was. What do you think of the Sixth Doctor? I'm currently watching his era, and I like him more than expected. He works really well in Big Finish. I see what they're going for in the show. It never there are some scenes that work. There are some bits that work, but for the most part, I don't think he works on the show. He works real well in Big Finish. They knew how to balance him. In your review of the Star Beast, you said canonizing Big Finish audios are easier to do than the comics. Why is that? Well, the main reason is that, for one thing, the Big Finish audios are not beholden to any specific visuals. That's one thing. And then the other thing is the comics have a tendency to be a little bit more bonkers. I know Big Finish is actually pretty dang careful about adhering to canon as best as they are able to. But the comics, especially if you are going back to like the comic strips that ran in Doctor Who magazine, those are just all over the goddamn map. And I'm pretty sure that's what I was referring to when I said the comics. I don't mean like the Titan comics run or anything newer. I mean like the bonkers nonsense that was done in Doctor Who magazine. And that's why that's harder to adapt, because they just didn't care. They just did whatever. Bond isn't for everyone. Talk to your doctor if Bond is right for you. Well played, James. That was good. I like that. Could Bond be worse than No Time to Die? Oh, sure. Oh, sure. No Time to Die is real bad, though. It's such trash, and I will never understand how it has like such a better reception than Spectre when it has literally all the same problems. I don't understand. I don't get it. Watching Numbers recently. Forgot Peter McNichol was in it. In 1993, McNichol was tormenting David Crumbles in Addams Family Values. Yet they are best friends in Numbers. I never watched Numbers. I knew it existed. Never watched that one, though. Heard of the fan theory that James Bond isn't a specific person but a code name? Oh, of course I have. And for a while, that made sense. It never 100% made sense, though. There were always like times and aspects and elements that didn't quite line up. Because, like, you've got, say, on Her Majesty's Secret Service, where George Lazenby has a throwaway line, I bet this never happened to the other guy. Now, yes, on a meta sense, that's a cheeky note about the casting, but you could also say, like, the last guy who held this code name. And it also would cover, like, Connery coming back to be Bond again, because if you go with the idea that, that Connery's Bond, like, tried to retire, and then Lazenby took over and like died or something, like, and then they brought Connery back again. That kind of makes sense. But then you get to something like, I think it's For Your Eyes Only, which is one of my favorite Bond movies, for the record. But they have this whole bit at the front with Bond at Tracy's grave, but it's not the same guy. It only makes sense if it's meant to be literally the same man who was in On Her Majesty's Secret Service, except that was a different guy. Now, like, the honest answer is they just don't care. Because, you know, by the time we got to Brosnan, like, the character of Bond should be too old for field work, is the honest truth. But, like, they've used a shifting timeline, and they've been kind of weird and squirrely about it. But, like, it was a theory that existed to try and assume a level of continuity that the movies just never bothered to have, to be blunt about it. Supreme Omega! Thank you very much. Moore is interesting because he's known as Mr. Deconstruction, yet he has affection for the fun side of heroes with a love for Weisinger/Swan era of soups. Oh, Alan Moore. Yeah. Moore is an interesting figure. Like, when I tell you that Alan Moore is an anarchist wizard, and I mean both of those things literally, and I were to then show you a picture of him, you go, oh yeah, that makes sense. He's something. He clearly has a deep love of comics and superheroes. And like, the thing is, yes, he does a lot of deconstruction in his work, but the thing is, there's two approaches to deconstruction. There's deconstruction because you think the thing needs to be taken down because it's flawed. And then there's deconstructing it because you love it and want to approach it from a different angle and see it engage in different things. And that's how I've always felt about Moore's deconstruction. Whereas there are other approaches I've seen to deconstruction, usually from people who claim to be influenced by Alan Moore, where it feels like you're deconstructing this because you hate it and you want to show it as bad. Like, if you actually think about what Watchmen is, it's not a deconstruction of heroes. It's a deconstruction of the idea that heroes should be realistic. It looks at that notion and goes, no, this would suck. And here's why. And here's what results in that. Unfortunately, because he's such a good story, people went, oh yeah, let's do more of that, and missed the freaking point. But Watchmen isn't really about deconstructing the idea of heroes being on pillars. It's a takedown of the idea that heroes should be more realistic. And you can look at a bunch of his other work that he's done since then and see that he clearly doesn't value realism that highly. He just used it as a tool in that instance. Worst Bond will forever be Moonraker. That one is pretty bad. I don't like, there are still a few Bond movies I haven't seen, so I can't say what definitively the worst one is. But yeah, I don't care for Moonraker. Have you seen the film Tropic Thunder? Not since it came out, but yes, I have. Let's see. Anarchist with, yeah, Erica, look up a picture of Alan Moore and you'll see what I mean. And yes, he is an anarchist and he is a wizard. He's a pagan wizard. Coyote Azul, thank you very much for the super chat. I think he goes by wizard. He might be a warlock. I actually can't remember now. So apologies if I got that wrong. In terms of fanon theories, I really like the one that all the Mad Max films are really the legends and stories told by the Wastelanders, hence the lack of continuity. Yeah, that certainly works. I think George Miller has validated that notion. I don't think he's like said 100% that is what's going on, but I think he has kind of said like, these are the stories of the wasteland. These are the stories that these people tell each other. So he has kind of validated that notion. Oh, sad news. Saw 11 got canceled. Excuse me while I go cry in a corner. I'm sorry, Gabriel. I only ever saw one Saw movie. It was the first one. That was enough. I was fine after that. Art Malik, who plays the villain in Ghost Monument, is also Orpheus in the storyteller Greek Myths. The Greek Myths season was not as good. It was still pretty good, though. And he was actually quite good in Ghost Monument. I really like him in that. He's real good as that villain. Ghost Monument's underappreciated. It's not like a top-tier Doctor Who, but it's way better, and people treat it like it's forgettable. Like, nah, there's good stuff going on in the Ghost Monument. I like that one. Brosnan never landed for me as Bond. Craig was better as the character, but the stories they chose were a complete mess. See, I like Brosnan's Bond. Brosnan, for me, struck the balance between like embracing some of the silliness, but also having those serious moments. Like, Brosnan could go dark in some moments and sell it, but also, you know, he was having fun, and I kind of like Bond to have a little fun. So Brosnan's my preferred Bond, I'm not going to lie, but I readily admit that's a matter of taste. And also, I'm biased. He was the first Bond I actually saw, so. Big Finish, stick to canon, whilst also having every character meet Jackie Tyler at least 15 times. I mean, well, like, that's a side effect of Big Finish being as big and sprawling as it is at this point. Since you've seen the film Tropic Thunder, what are your thoughts on it? It has been too long since I've seen that movie for me to formulate thoughts on it. If you're asking me about the blackface thing, which is the thing that most people bring up about that, I will default to the criticisms put forward by people of color. I don't really feel like having an opinion on that, especially given how long it's been since I've seen it. Alan Moore reminds me of Grigor Rasputin. Yeah, a little bit. Similar, like, mad look in the eyes. 7 minutes. Thank you, Carowin. Dalton and Craig leaned more into the assassin angle of Bond. They did. And, like, I get people having that as a preference. I like Bond enjoying his work. because like I feel, especially at this point, most spy stories have like these damaged men with their super serious issues, and they do the job because violence is all they know. And I like Bond to be a antidote to that. He's the spy who goes in, martini in one hand, woman in the other, and just going, "Hey, I'm the coolest guy in the room." Like, is it silly? Is it absurd? Yes, but it's fun, and I like the notion that the guy has fun. And again, that's not to say that like the more serious ones are bad. I like some of the Daniel Craig ones. I like Skyfall especially, and he's certainly not having fun in that. But just in the broad sense, I like when Bond seems to enjoy his work. That to me makes it more meaningful when he gets serious. That it's not his default mode. Like, I remember one of the moments that for me really epitomizes Brosnan's Bond is from The World Is Not Enough. And he is holding a woman at gunpoint, and he's telling her like to put down the phone and not make this call. And the scene ultimately ends with him shooting her in cold blood. And he sells it, and it's a really dark moment because it feels earned. We saw what she put him through. We see why he went that dark and was willing to direct that darkness at her in specific. And it hits harder for me because he likes the job and he's having fun until something goes so badly that he's really not. When he stops having fun and he gets serious, it hits harder for me because it's not his default. It's not what he's doing all the goddamn time. Oh yeah, the Berriman interview, to quote him, "I don't regret anything, and it was a different time." I feel like just throwing those quotes out there is taking him out of context a little bit, because he does say those things, but he also does say, like, I have apologized at other times and I have addressed it at other times. So, and like, he has, how well he's addressed it, that's a different matter. But like, I feel like just throwing those statements out there independently, while not untrue in terms of things that he said, I feel like that's misrepresentative of the interview as a whole. And no, I don't plan to talk about it. Have you seen the show Venture Brothers? Nope, I have not. Can you believe the fact that we're getting a Freaky Friday 2? I saw the trailer. It showed up as an ad on a YouTube video. I kept waiting for it to suddenly like change into an ad where it's like, oh, it's a fake trailer, we're really advertising whatever. I kept waiting for that to happen, and it didn't, and I was like, oh my goodness. Oh no. Why? Ugh. An interesting thing would be to compare James Bond to George Smiley, two totally different approaches to the spy genre. Yeah, that's fair and true. Sent you a super chat earlier when you were reading the Discord. I'm not seeing it, Tara. Are you sure it went through? Because I'm checking the viewer activity log. I've got Ash G. Alexander. I've got Phil, Paget Comedian, Supreme Omega, Carlisle the Cinephile, Coyote Azul, Defunct, Ed Phillips, Jennifer De Benedetto, Supreme Omega, and Coyote Azul again. You're not showing up here, Tara. Oh, there it is. Happy early birthday, Vera. Mine is coming up in early April too. I took a week of PTO that week from work to sleep. Well, I hope that you get all the sleep that you need. So, and thank you very much. I appreciate that. Which Freaky Friday is it a sequel to? The remake one. Anyways, so yeah. Coming up, I will be streaming. I no longer stream on Twitch. I now stream gaming in my secondary channel, the Break Room of Geeks. Still the same days, Wednesdays and Friday. I'm still playing Tunic So I'll be streaming that in the Break Room of Geeks tomorrow from 12:30 p.m. to 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time. I should have a review up for the latest episode of Daredevil Born Again on Thursday. I'll be streaming again on Friday. I might have a new video up in the Vera Wild channel this week. Yeah, I think I'll commit to that. I'll have a new video up in the Vera Wild channel this week. And Saturday's video here on the main channel is going to be about transphobia and toxic parenting. So good, light, fun subject for all. That'll be lovely. So there we go. Thank you all for joining me very much. I hope that you have a great rest of the week, good rest of the month, as good a year as you possibly can, and take care of yourselves and do the best that you can out there. Thank you very much for joining me. Please remember that you are the council. I'm just running the meetings, and I want you to remember that you are beautiful, you are valid, and you are loved. And until next time, this council is adjourned. McCavity!